Hey guys, in this video, I'll share with you how to backup your Windows system state using Ahsay OBM. A comprehensive Windows system state backup is essential for safeguarding vital Windows Server system components from potential corruption or configuration errors. The specific system components included in a Windows system state backup vary based on the server roles deployed. Typically, all Windows system state backups encompass the Windows system registry, boot files, and system files. For domain controllers, the backup extends to cover essential Active Directory configurations. Similarly, backups running on computers operating cluster services will incorporate cluster server metadata. To guarantee flawless integration and maintain data integrity, Ahsay utilizes the Windows WB Admin tool in conjunction with Volume Shadow Copy Service or VSS to create a consistent snapshot of the Windows system state. This approach positions Ahsay as the ideal solution for your Windows system state backup needs. With Ahsay's Windows system state backup safeguarding your Windows servers, domain controllers, IaaS servers, and more, you are empowered to promptly recover from Windows startup failures or the dreaded blue screen of death, effortlessly revert any unsuitable changes to the Windows system configuration, and streamline the restoration of system settings and critical system files. Let's go to my screen and get started. To start with, double-click the Ahsay OBM icon from your desktop. This will prompt the Ahsay OBM window. Once you're on the login page of Ahsay OBM, enter your credentials to access your account. Then click OK. As you can see, you're now on the home screen of Ahsay OBM. But before being able to do a backup job, you'll need to create a backup set first. So click on Backup Sets. Then click the plus sign. You can rename your backup set or you can also use the default name provided. Then, change the backup set type to MS Windows System State Backup. You will be asked to specify the temporary location for the system state backup. This is required by the WB Admin utility to store the generated system state file during the backup job. If the Windows server has only one drive, to accommodate the spooling of the system state image file, you would have to do any of the following. 1 is to connect a USB drive. 2. Repartition the C drive to add an additional drive. 3. Install a physical drive. And 4. Set up a network drive. This is the least preferred option as it may affect the backup performance. For this, let's select the other drive which was repartitioned from the C drive. After selecting the temporary storage location, click Next. A scheduled backup will automatically back up the files and folders you have selected based on the frequency and time you set it on. This is very important, as a regular scheduled backup will minimize data loss, ensuring you can always recover the most updated version of your files. A default backup schedule is already set up weekly on Fridays at 8 p.m. It is recommended to perform an MS Windows System State Backup at least once a week, as well as before and after any major changes are applied to Windows, and when the system activity is low to achieve the best possible performance. We can leave this on default, but let's create another backup schedule and run through the features of schedule. Click the Add button. You can use the default schedule name, but for this example, I'll use Weekly Backup on Tuesdays at 1800. Next, choose from the different types of backup schedules such as daily, weekly, monthly, or custom. For this example, we will select Weekly and rename the backup schedule. And select Tuesday. And configure the time to our preferred backup schedule. This setting is considered as the normal backup schedule, setting a certain time as to when the backup job will run. Now, if you change when the backup will start from at to every, this is called periodic backup schedule. Periodic backup schedule will automatically back up your data every 1 minute, up to every 12 hours, depending on the interval you will select. The smaller the backup interval, the more frequent the backup job is. This ensures that changes made are captured regularly, which allows greater flexibility in recovery to a point in time. However, backups running at very irregular intervals may have a performance impact on your backup machine. The increased frequency of backups may result in an increase in overall storage quota usage. Meanwhile, there are two options to choose from when you want the backup job to stop. This feature only works when you set a normal backup schedule. So let's switch this back from every to add. The default setting is until full backup completed, which means the backup job will only stop running when all selected files or folders or any subsequent changes are completely backed up regardless of how long it takes. The other option will stop the backup job after a certain number from 1 to 24 hours, even if the backup of your files or folder is not yet complete. For this example, we will use the default setting until full backup completed to ensure that all the latest changes to our files and folders are fully backed up every day. For the run retention policy after backup setting, the best practice is to have it enabled. With this setting turned on, Ahsay OBM will permanently delete files and folders in the retention area that have exceeded the retention period to better manage the backup storage quota after each backup job. We will be talking more about retention policy later on. After setting up your preferred backup schedule, select OK. Then click Next. For the destination, the default backup mode is sequential. But since we're selecting more than one storage destination, it is recommended to switch the backup mode to concurrent. To allow Ahsay OBM to back up your data to both destinations simultaneously, this approach helps reduce the overall backup time, which minimizes any performance impact to the backup machine. Once you switch to concurrent, you'll be able to set the maximum number of destinations to run simultaneously. Let's keep the default selection, which is unlimited. To add new storage destination, click the plus sign. The default destination storage Ahsay drive is already selected. If you can remember, I mentioned that we will be selecting more than one storage destination. So we'll keep this on default and click OK to continue. Then click Add. Select Local, Map Drive, Network Drive, Removable Drive. It is very important that you choose to back up your Windows system state to both local drive and network drive. This combines the security of an offsite copy with the convenience of local accessibility and performance for recovery purposes to provide maximum data protection and flexible restore options. Once you have selected the said destination, you will be asked to input local or network address. Click Change. Then select a destination. For this example, we will be selecting this network drive. Click Open. Then click OK to proceed. Click OK again. Ahsay OBM will test its access to the network drive. After a successful test, click Next to continue. Now for encryption, we will use the default setting, which is the most secure option as it uses AES 256-bit encryption technology and a randomly generated encryption key made up of 44 alphanumeric characters. Take note, once you have selected the encryption settings and your backup set is created, it cannot be changed afterwards. If you need to change the encryption settings, then a new backup set must be created. Your data will have to be backed up again from scratch. Click Next. It is very important to keep a copy of your encryption key before clicking Confirm. If you forget or lose your encryption key, you will lose the ability to access and restore your backup data. Click Confirm to continue. Before the backup set can be successfully created, you will be required to enter your Windows credentials to proceed. This is because in this example, we selected a network drive for the destination storage which requires the credentials. Ahsay OBM utilizes Windows User Authentication Login credentials to ensure it has adequate permissions for accessing various components on the backup machine. These include the temporary folder location and the backup destination, whether it's a local drive or a network drive accessible from the backup machine via LAN. The Windows User Authentication Login credentials must have the necessary permission to access network resources. Enter your Windows account password to provide Ahsay OBM permission. Then click Next. You now have the option to back up your files right away by clicking Backup Now, or wait for the scheduled backup to start. Let's close this window and go back to the backup sets page. Select the backup set that you have just created. We're going to have a quick look at some of the other important settings on our MS Windows System State backup set, such as the duplication, retention policy, temporary directory, and compression setting. click Show Advanced Settings. 1 is the duplication. This feature is enabled by default, and when it is turned on, it removes all duplicate data blocks from your backup. The default settings are the optimal settings for the duplication and will result in up to 50% savings in storage space and costs for file backups. It will also reduce network bandwidth usage and will allow for faster backups. Next to the duplication is retention policy. Every time Ahsay OBM runs a backup job, any previously backed up files or folders that are subsequently modified or deleted on your Windows system state are moved to the retention area, where they can still be restored. The retention policy determines how long these deleted or modified files or folders are stored in the retention area before they are permanently removed. There are 2 retention policy options for Windows system state backup sets on Ahsay OBM. 1 is simple, where the retained files are removed after a specified number of days or backup jobs. The default retention policy setting is 7 days, while the other is advanced, where you can add multiple policies to keep the most recent versions than older versions, or be able to recover the older versions of deleted or modified files and/or folders. Click the plus sign to add advanced retention policies or see more of the advanced retention policy. You can change the default retention policy name, but you can also use the default name provided. You can also choose among the different types as to how recently you would like the different versions of your files to be retained. An advanced retention policy offers more flexibility and control in managing older versions of deleted or modified files or folders to maximize the scope of your data recovery while minimizing storage usage and costs. While for simple retention policy, increasing the duration increases the likelihood of recovering older versions of deleted or modified files or folders. This provides extra protection, allowing us to recover any deleted or modified data from the machine for up to 1 year. Close this window by clicking Cancel. Then select Simple and type in 365. Moving on, click Others and you'll see the temporary directory and compression setting. For the temporary directory, the default location is on the C drive, where the Windows operating system is also installed. You might want to change this and select another local drive. For this example, we'll select this local drive and click the temp folder that we created. Click OK. This is the best practice, as using the C drive might cause the machine to crash once it runs out of space, as in some cases, a large number of temporary files may be created during backup and restore. A network drive should also not be considered, as this could affect the backup and restore performance. Meanwhile, the remove temporary files after backup is enabled by default in order to keep the temporary drive clear. Below the temporary directory is the compressions. Data compression serves 2 purposes: enhancing backup performance and reducing storage space and storage costs. There are 4 compression types available: no compression, normal, fast, and fast with optimization for local. This compression type is selected by default as it balances data compression speed, compression ratio, and CPU usage efficiently. The compression settings can be changed anytime. If the compression type is changed, the new setting will take effect on the next backup job. Now that you've learned a bit more about the other important backup settings and how to adjust them based on your preferences, it's time to back up your files. Close this window by clicking Save. From the Ahsay OBM home screen, select Backup. Click the backup set that you have just created. Since this is the first backup job, no data exists in the retention area, so there's no need to enable Run Retention Policy after backup. However, you should not forget to enable it in future backups. Click Backup to proceed with the backup job. Now you just have to wait for the backup job to finish, which may take a while. Once done, you'll see under the progress bars that the backup has been completed successfully. And that's how you back up your Microsoft Windows system state using Ahsay OBM. With Ahsay, your data is fully protected. Armed with the latest technology like immutable backups, where your backup data will never be encrypted, deleted, or modified for total protection against hackers and ransomware. Strong AES 256-bit data encryption ensures your data is encrypted during transit and when your data is stored to prevent anyone from reading your data without your permission. Two-factor authentication to prevent anyone from accessing your data without your permission. Multi-destination backups to store your backup data in more than one storage destination and across many geographical regions for maximum protection against natural disasters, fire, or conflicts. And data deduplication, a feature that removes duplicate copies of data that helps you save up to 90% of your storage space with significant savings on your storage costs as well as much faster backups. That's why you should choose Ahsay. Your data is safe with us.